1, 0, all engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Good evening, Atlanta. Welcome. It's Erick Erickson here. News 95.5 AM 750 WSB. We've talked to 3 of the 5 gubernatorial candidates for the Republicans. Looks like we're going to get the Democrats in here as well to have the same sorts of conversations. I'll keep you posted on that. We've got Casey Cagle tomorrow night at 7. We're working to reschedule Clay Tippins as well. His uncle in the news today, interestingly enough, Lindsey Tippins in the state Senate. We'll get to that later. First, 2 things. We got to get to the budget deal. Before we get to the budget deal, just quickly, the president wants to have a military parade. I don't care whether you like the idea of a military parade or not. It doesn't matter to me. I'm somewhat indifferent. I think it's something that communists and third world countries do. The United States has never had to brag about or display its military prowess. Everyone just knows we're awesome. Whether you like it or not, though. Can we just say that the president, I think even die-hard Donald Trump supporters will agree, the president often comes up with silly ideas. He pulls stuff out of where God knows where. But what's more striking is not that the president sometimes, occasionally, often comes up with these ideas. It's the reaction from the left to those ideas. In fact, the reaction, I dare say, gives them legitimacy they might not have otherwise had. Take, for example, this. The President of the United States wants to do a military parade. He wants to display the arsenal of democracy down Pennsylvania Avenue. And the left? Why, the left is in full pull your hair out, set it on fire mode. They actually are parading around themselves, pun intended, signing up volunteers to lay down in front of tanks should the military parade happen. So let's put this all in perspective for you. We can have a gay pride parade celebrating hedonism across America with scantily clad people doing God knows what in public, and we're not only to celebrate it, we're supposed to bake cakes for it. We can have women parading all over Washington, D.C. in pink hats designed to symbolize their anatomy. And we're to celebrate it. But put the military on oh my Lord, no, we can't do that. No. You can't do that because for the single reason that Donald J. Trump suggested it. That's it. That is why the left is outraged about this, because Donald Trump wants to do it. If Barack Hussein Obama wanted a military parade, the left would think it was the greatest thing since even before sliced bread, which they would tell us he invented himself. If Bill Clinton wanted to parade interns down Fifth Avenue, the left would be signing up 60-year-old women in comfortable shoes to claim they were interns to celebrate human sexuality for Bill Clinton, and they would love it. But Donald Trump wants to parade the arsenal of democracy down Pennsylvania Avenue. We've got to lay down on the street and block the tanks. This is why Donald Trump won, by the way. What on earth? This is why Donald Trump won. This is why Donald Trump is going to keep winning. This is why Donald Trump is probably going to win in 2020. Because the American left has lost their ever-living mind. They can celebrate God knows what marching down the street. But the American military, because Donald Trump suggested it, no, we've got to burn the place down. Burn it down they would if they could. Some of you want to burn down traffic. We better go check with Doug Turnbull.
Simmer down now. It's going to be hard for it to catch fire in the mist that's falling outside. Keep the headlights on. 513 of the Skycopter. And I-20 is slow in both directions just west of 285 because of an eastbound crash in that area. And so what it's done is put extra pressure on the perimeter. 285 north, the inner loop slows before Cascade, exit 7 of 2 I-20. And then the outer loop, 285 west and south, has about 5 to 10 minutes tacked onto that. About a 50-minute trip time for 400 around to the West Freeway. Your inner loop in the Gap, typical delays, 285 east and south, almost an hour. Ashford, Dunwoody, exit 29 around to Memorial Drive, exit 41, Eric.
Thank you, sir. Downside of having Macs now, apparently, is people can call my cell phone and they can all of a sudden ring on all my computers I've got around me and iPads. Probably should turn that feature off. Y'all, we need to talk about the budget deal. It's bad. It is very bad. $300 billion over the next couple of years. Democrats and Republicans wanting to raise the debt ceiling. We are crossing $20 trillion. Now, if the Democrats came up with this, I would not be surprised. And the Democrats and the Republicans or the Republicans in the House, they would be opposed to it. But the Republicans are the ones who came up with this idea, $300 billion. Y'all, we got a problem. There is no incentive in Washington to cut spending, and we need to cut spending. Democrats would say we got to raise taxes to pay for it all, but there's a problem. You could raise taxes to capture 100% of all income generated in the United States, and you're still not going to pay things down. In fact, you would starve the economy. You would send us into economic depression. You raise taxes by 10% on the wealthy, you're going to chase capital out of the country. Apple's not going to repatriate its billions. You got to cut spending. And Republicans for years have been the party championing fiscal discipline. And by the way, they're not only going to do this budget deal, Mitch McConnell says they're going to prepare an open immigration plan in the Senate. Democrats and Republicans working together on an immigration plan in the United States Senate. How do you think that's going to turn out? Look, I realize I am squishy compared to many of you on the issue of DACA, but I am opposed to giving their parents citizenship, and I'm afraid that's where we're headed. But I am also equally opposed to the government continuing to spend more and more without any restraint, without any sequestration, without any end game in sight. They're doing these continuing resolutions, dragging things out over and over without any budget, without any fiscal discipline. At some point, it's going to be our kids and grandkids having to pay for this stuff. The size and scope of the federal government is unsustainable. They can pad it by saying, well, we've had an economic upturn. We're looking at the federal government growing at 3 or 4%. That's good. That will increase income. That will minimize to some degree the debt that we are incurring, but it's not going to get rid of it. It's still going to add on top of it. Every year, let me go through this for those of you who don't realize it. Every year, the federal government's supposed to have a budget, and they set the budget to fund things for the next year. Well, what the Republicans and Democrats alike have been doing for the last decade is continuing resolutions where they do a small, limited spending plan where they essentially increase everything overall instead of doing budgets and individual appropriations for the various executive departments. And what they do with these continuing resolutions is they incur a deficit. A deficit is how much more the expenditures exceed the income for a year. Now, with the tax cuts, I know it sounds counterintuitive, but the tax cuts will actually cause people to spend more money and will cause the economy to grow, which will expand the pool of tax revenue into the federal government. We know it's not going to be enough, though, to close that deficit. So when we close out the budget, there will still be more money owed by the government than incoming to the government. So that deficit then goes onto the stack of national debt. Our national debt is now over $20 trillion. Republicans for 8 years railed against the national debt because Barack Obama single-handedly added more to the national debt than any other president. In fact, all presidents combined got us to $10 trillion in national debt. Barack Obama went from $10 trillion to $20 trillion all on his own, an insult to drunken sailors. But now Republicans, who for years railed against the debt and the deficit, they're doing the same thing. Y'all, it's unsustainable. And if Republicans don't come up with a spending plan to reduce these expenditures and get things back in line and balance the budget, Democrats are going to jack up taxes. They're going to jack them up massively, and it's going to screw up the economy. But they're going to have this popular argument that, well, we got $20 trillion in national debt. We got to pay off this debt. And by the way, we want to pay China on our national debt. Something's got to give on this. It is highly irresponsible for the Republicans and the Democrats in Washington, D.C. to get together behind closed doors and raise $300 billion in spending over the next 2 years with no offsets and no cuts. This is not sustainable.
Erick Erickson and Atlanta's Evening News.
Who is that guy?